Um, until it got to the point where I actually decided to quit all three of my jobs and focus full time on the markets.
Wow.
Now, I don't recommend anyone doing that. It was probably, and it worked out luckily, but it was probably not the smartest decision. So,
Yeah.
me quitting my three jobs, that was kind of putting my back against the wall in a do or die situation.
I mean, I'm a pretty good trader, but I still to this day make some of the same mental mistakes because as human beings, our need to be right.
I am very emotionally neutral, meaning I don't really get super happy. I don't really get super sad.
One of the worst things that can happen when you first start trading is you have a bunch of winning trades like in a row because you think you're the smartest dude on the planet. And next thing you know, you get hit over the head with a hammer like in a cartoon. I am super excited about today's guest. Check this out. My friend quit 3 jobs to go all in on trading. He had no backup plan and he struggled. He struggled hard and he made every single mistake in trading and he nearly blew it. But then he found the right mentor and he was able to flip the script. Akil Stokes became a consistently profitable trader. He's managed money and he now coaches traders in over 120 countries. He's also the co-founder of Tier 1 Trading. This one is packed with real trader talk, trader strategy, and lessons that most traders have to learn the hard way. Here is my interview with Akil Stokes. Awesome. So I'm curious about you, man. How did you get into trading?
Well, long story short, or long story medium, I guess. My dad always did a good job of teaching me about just money and investing. Not he wasn't any expert or anything like that, but simply like growing up, hey, here is a savings account. Here is what interest is. Here is, I elevated to money market and CDs and stuff like that. And I remember after I graduated college, I had money that I saved up from gifts and, I've been working my entire life. I don't really spend much. I'm a pretty frugal guy. And I was asking him, hey, so what do I do with all this? And he said, well, the next step is to maybe try some investments, get some exposure to the stock market. So what I did was I got into the stock market. I bought my first stock and it just happened to be around the same time that things were getting serious with my girlfriend at the time, wife now, and I was getting vetted by like all of her family. So she had a grandfather type figure who came in, sat me down, and wanted to know about me. And I found out that he was actually this great investor, not just in the financial markets, but in real estate as well. And we kind of clicked over that. And what I did that summer was I said, hey, like, I just want to be your shadow. So I literally sat in his office that entire summer and just listened to his phone calls, watched what he did, eavesdropped on his meetings and just learned about the markets that way. And once he kind of found out that, hey, like this guy is serious, he would come in and give me freedom to kind of experiment and explore and learn myself, but also give me tips on kind of what to do, how to do it, what to look for. And that was really dipping my toe into the water with investments for the first time.
And what year is that, if you don't mind me asking?
This had to be 2000. I just graduated, so 2007. 2007.
Okay. Okay. And was he recommending stocks or he was doing financial advice or retirement plans? What was he up to?
He was just an independent investor.
Oh,
So
okay.
he didn't trade for anyone else. No, just he became independently wealthy off of investments in the stock market and the real estate market. So he was doing it all for himself. Yeah.
Was he doing it all day? Was he staring at the screen all day?
No, so he wasn't active. He was older at the time. So he had to be,
Okay.
by the time I met him, he had to be probably in his 80s.
Oh,
So he
wow.
was
Okay.
really, really passive, but obviously had a massive amount of knowledge up there. So he had this old school style of investing too, where he didn't look at charts. He would task me to drive around places. It was crazy. Task me to drive around places and like count how many cars were in the parking lot at like different times of day. And it was the weirdest thing I ever heard in my life. I'm like, this guy's just doing like, this is normal intern stuff, whatever like that. But he was doing was he was seeing like how popular different places were and he had a method behind it. It was more of a common sense investment approach. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
that store has a lot of cars in the parking lot all day. That means it's busy. And it's just like, it was it was weird, but it makes sense, years later.
Right. I guess it's like an early lesson in supply and demand, isn't it?
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And again, I had no idea what it was. He would tell me about stuff. Oh yeah, there's the Waffle House indicator and stuff like that. Because we had a Waffle House near us. I'm like, what do you like? What do you? Are you just hungry? I'm just getting you food, aren't I? But yeah, those are very early on lessons on supply and demand. And as we work through different kind of market conditions like recessions and stuff like that, you can actually see the differences where you see full parking lots where obviously the public is excited and we're willing to spend versus, in recessions and whatnot, empty parking lots where we don't have this kind of surplus of money to go spend on the things that aren't necessities, I guess you can say. So it was
Interesting.
interesting and
So it
it
was a
makes sense
course in
now.
economics, really. It was
It, exactly. And it was better than any economics course I ever had in school.
mhm.
I got
Yeah,
D pluses in my two economic courses in
really.
college, changed majors because of that. And I look back at what he taught me. I'm like, this is actually relevant versus these stupid graphs that don't make any sense.
Right. Well, economics is a behavioral science, and to
Yeah.
see people's behavior in real time makes a huge difference. So what was your first jumping into an actual job related to trading?
Oh, no job. I was independent. So I actually did the opposite. I started trading or I started investing. And I was investing in the stock market. I had a few really good investments. I didn't have a lot of money. So I would invest in something, I'd hold on to it for a few weeks and I'd find another opportunity and I'd have to cash out on investment A in order to fund
Right.
investment B. And I was good at it, but I just didn't have enough money to make a lot of money off of it. And I had a friend of mine that told me about Forex, and this is how I first got introduced into Forex. And he said, it's the Forex market, it's a global exchange. I know what he was talking about. He's like, you can make more money with less money because it's leveraged in a quicker amount of time. And of course, that's all the things that I wanted to hear. And to show you how naive I was about the currency market, I thought that we would literally because the only thing I knew about the currency exchange were in like airports and stuff like that. So I
Right.
thought we would be going to airports with duffel bags full of money, no lie, sitting at the currency exchange, like a pile of money here, waiting for it and be like, okay, switch, switch, switch. And like, it was just idiotic, but
It
I was
was
so,
it was a literal interpretation of
yes,
what
that's all I knew.
the you right, the airport, and that's where foreign exchange
Yeah.
happens.
And again, and this is 2007. So,
Right.
Forex trading is what I think it just became public late 90s. So a lot of people didn't know what it was. But I went to Forex thinking I would have the same success as I did in the stock market, even more success because it was less money, quicker amount of time, whatever like that. And
24-hour market.
24-hour market, I struggled. And this was my first introduction to technical analysis as well.
Mm.
And part of my struggle was because I was working three jobs at the time
Ooh,
and I was quite comfortable. I had no bills aside from like student loans. I had no family. So like I was making probably like $35,000 and that was more than enough for my frugal life. But it also meant there was no urgency to succeed. So I would like throw a lot of money at the market, doing dumb stuff, lose, and be like, okay, well, paycheck's coming in 2 weeks. I'll just reload and do it again. Until it got to the point where I actually decided to quit all three of my jobs and focus full time on the markets.
wow.
Now, I don't recommend anyone doing that. It was probably, and it worked out luckily, but it was probably not the smartest decision. But I knew for me, as long as I had that comfort cushion of like, oh, I'm getting this steady paycheck and I'll just reinvest, I was going to keep doing dumb stuff and never actually take it seriously. So
Yeah.
me quitting my three jobs, that was kind of putting my back against the wall in a do or die situation. And as someone who was a former athlete, I've always been that type where it's like, hey, if the game's on the line, like, hey, quarterback, you throw me the ball, or hey, pass me the ball. I want to take
Wow.
this last minute shot. And it fortunately it worked out. It wasn't smart. It didn't work out as quickly as I thought it would. But I do think it was necessary for me to stay motivated and do the right things, I should say.
So you were ride or die, essentially. You were like,
Yeah.
I'm going in, I'm diving into this pool head first, even though I've never climbed a ladder this high before. Wow. That
Yes.
is that is brave. Three jobs. You had
Yeah.
three jobs and you quit them to trade
Yeah.
Forex. Okay. So now you're sitting in front of a computer.
Ooh.
You got charts in front of you. What was your
Mhm.
methodology when you started?
Nothing. Whatever the internet told me on that day, I was like many other people where I bounced around and I was just, I had nothing better to do all day because I quit my 3 jobs. So I'm just on the internet all day. There wasn't as much on YouTube, and I'm like reading articles, magazines, looking at books, and on social media, just like looking for ideas. And I would read about something, then I would look for more information on it, then I would test it out, then I would lose money. Then the next day I would read something else and repeat that process. So um, I had no methodology. I really had no idea what I was doing at all. I was
No
learning.
mentor? Did you find a mentor?
So eventually I did find a mentor. So
How bad did it have to get before you found the mentor?
it again, it didn't get too bad. I did a lot of dumb stuff, but I've always been good with money management. So although I was
Okay.
recklessly throwing money at the market, I was never like risking 50% of my account or anything like that. I was
Okay.
still, from the investment days, I was still smart with money and risk management, but you can see the account depleting. And I actually found my mentor by accident. On one of these days, I was perusing the internet and I read, it was in a magazine called FX Trader Magazine. Again, dating myself, right? FX
Right,
Trader
right.
Magazine, I believe, existed a long time ago, not anymore. But it was an article about this guy that won this trading competition. So I'm like, okay, like let's read about this. Someone did really, really good. I want to do really, really good. Let's figure it out. And I'm reading it, and he didn't win. I'm sorry, he finished third. And I'm reading the whole thing about his methodology, how he approached it. And at the very end is what stood out to me. He said, the way I traded in this trading competition to get third place, I would never trade like that in real life because it was far too aggressive with his approach and his risk management. And it just seemed like honest because I'm like, everyone else was like, yeah, I got third because I'm awesome. This guy was like, if this were my live money, I'd never do it. And I kind of followed him, and he had a website. He had this thing called a trader assessment. I filled it out, not thinking anything of it. And to my surprise, he actually called me that night and he kind of gave me a reality check, a hard hit in the face where he spoke to me about trading. He asked me the same question you did. What's your methodology? What's your strategy? And I would try to like BS him, like, yeah, I do this, I do this. And he's like, how? And I'm, well, I sometimes do this. Well, what if this happens? And then eventually I kind of just gave up. I'm like, and I realized like, I don't have a method. I don't have a philosophy. I don't have a plan. And that was my kind of moment where I realized like, I need help. And eventually he ended up becoming my mentor and things. I still struggled for a while because I was still doing dumb stuff like many people. I'd listen to what I wanted to hear and ignore some other stuff. But eventually it got me to where I wanted to be.
It's interesting that you say that because I started on Wall Street in 1987, 17 years old, fresh out of high school. My
Ooh,
dad was a trader on the New York Mercantile Exchange, and so he got me a job that summer before college as a floor clerk.
nice.
And all these years later, I mean, I'm a pretty good trader, but I still to this day make some of the same mental mistakes because as human beings, our need to be right just has this, it can override what is the wrong, don't do that. I know for me, like I really have to try to be like a robot, and human beings are not robots. We're emotional beings. So you got him as your mentor.
Yep.
Um, was he expensive? How did that work at that time?
So it was actually two mentors. They both worked for the same company, but yeah, well expensive to me at the time. I think I paid about $3,000 for a course, which I don't. For me, that was a lot of money. And I don't think I've ever spent that much on anything educationally, aside from like paying for college, whatever like that. So for me, it was expensive, but from what he did was, he allowed me to kind of hop in one of his live trading rooms. And on day one, I was sold on day one. He said, stay here for a week, then we could talk at the end of the week if you want. And day one, I called him back and said I want in. But I saw how it was structured. And he's ex-military, the main mentor, and it was very structured, very rules based. And it was meant to, like you just said, meant to put you in a position where you can best overcome or avoid those psychological mistakes. And being a former athlete, like that's what I need. Like, coach, give me a play. I can execute the play, but if you give me direction, I'm good at following it.
It's
And
that's an interesting point.
Mhm.
you were used to being coached.
Yes. Yep. My
And
entire life, I am used to
mm,
being athlete robot, where it's like, tell me what to do. I will work hard and I will execute it. But like,
that's an
point me
interesting
there.
trait that you have, that because you've had the experience
Mhm.
growing up being coached. I like, for me personally, I was a very independent kid. Like
Mhm.
I did not want to be told what to do ever. I started delivering newspapers when I was 12. I always had money in my pocket. And so I guess I was kind of cocky as a kid. I was very uncoachable.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, at least for me, when I had to get to a point where the pain of losing trades and revenge trading got so bad that that's when I figured out a system. I mean, I never went negative.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people who have had to sell their house in from commodity futures specifically, like got burned so bad that they went negative, like they owed the clearinghouse money on margin calls, and it ruined their lives. I know people like that, but I had some experiences that really made me figure it out. And so just being coachable by itself, I don't know if that's a common trait among people. You were an athlete in high school and in college?
Yeah, all through high school and college, and I'll tell you what, my mentors always told me this too. It was for better or for worse. I'm like this in life, where, but it's certainly a benefit in trading. So I don't know. It's probably a little bit of me personally, but also being in sports for my entire life and having the ups and the downs. I am very emotionally neutral,
Mm,
meaning I don't really get super happy. I don't really get super sad. I remember talking to my mentor. He'd always make fun of me because like I'd have like this big winning streak, and I'd be like, yeah, and I have the big losing streak, and I'd be like, yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I feel it inside like everyone else, but I stay pretty balanced emotion. I think that goes back to the sports day as well, where it's like, hey, I've been in plenty of games where I've won. I've been in plenty of games where I lost, and like, you're only as good as your next play. So
right,
my mind, and this is certainly a benefit that I've understood about myself in the market, and the market has probably enhanced this as well. For better or for worse, I'm not very present. I'm always future based. So like
interesting.
I don't really take time to celebrate the now because I'm already focused on the next. And in life, it doesn't. There are some drawbacks of that in life, but in the market, all we're doing is predicting the future. So
Right.
it's a benefit because, like, hey, I have a winning trade. It's like, okay, I don't care. Good, it's done. What's next? And I'm very good at moving on from a bad trade. Same way. Oh, losing trade that sucked. Okay, what's next? And certainly that's something that I think has helped me in my trading career.
For sure. Um, it's a very interesting personality trait when I think about it, because trading can bring all your head trash from childhood right
Yes.
to the surface, like boom, immediately. Like if anybody ever criticized you or any internal criticism of yourself, you get a couple bad trades in a row, and you can really mess up your life. I've seen it. I
Yep.
hate to say it. I mean, I've had some streaks a long time ago, but because you really got to get that risk management down and recognize, you're not right. The market's right. You just
Yeah.
know when to admit you're wrong and get out when you're wrong. So I think that's a very interesting trait. So tell me about so you're coaching now. So you were
Yes.
just,
Yep.
so for years, but so how long were you just a trader until you
So
decided to get into coaching?
So I was a trader for, let's say, I'm going to say I got consistently profitable in, let's call it 2010. It was probably more 2009 ish, but like it took me a long time to actually admit it. I was scared to admit I was good because I was afraid, like, how the market jinxes
Yeah.
go. Like, as soon as I say I'm
Hmm.
good, I'm going to be bad. But
Yeah.
I'm going to say, let's say 2010. And then, I realized then that, like, hey, I quit my jobs. I was going to be a full time trader. I didn't realize how much money it actually took to be a full-time trader. When I first got into it, I had the dreams like everyone else, like, oh, I'll make like $1 million in like 4 years. I'll have like an 80% return every day and blah, blah, blah. And you realize, like, wait a minute, this is more of a slow, steady grind where, you can outperform the stock market. You're doing wonders, but you're not going to make 800% a year. Like, that's
Right.
not a realistic thing on a regular basis. So what I did was I got into managing money for others, and I hated it. I did that
Okay.
for about 2 years as well. I got a
You
lot
got
of
your
war
Series
stories.
7
I
or
got my no, no, I did it independently. So I was,
okay.
yeah, so I didn't I was an account. I'm trying to remember trying the way I worded it to make it legal.
And what is all
It was
Forex trading.
it was yeah, it was account management. So I
And
had permission.
you were running their money. You were buying
Yes,
and
I had
selling on
permission.
their behalf.
I didn't trade their I traded their money on their behalf. I managed their trading accounts. Yes.
Okay.
Um,
That's a lot of pressure. And I know this because I did the same thing when I was a stockbroker.
yeah, and I
And
wasn't ready. I went from 0 to I went from someone with like $5,000 account to trading over a quarter mil and trading position sizes that were like bigger than my account size. And like you said, like I thought I was able to deal with a loss with my own money when I'm trading like, $2 a tick or something like that. When you're trading $250,000 worth and that's not a lot to many
it
people, but
doesn't
for me it
scale.
was.
It doesn't
It
scale in your head, right?
it
I know what
it,
you're talking about. It's hard to
it was
scale it.
incredible. Yeah, I had a bad streak that wasn't entirely my fault. That's another story, but I lost like $30,000 in like a week pretty much, and I didn't know how to mentally like deal with it, and it shut me down, so I I did that. I did not enjoy trading and investing. I had the main client I had was very hands-on, so he didn't
Uh-oh.
allow me to kinda stick to my plan. He was always kinda calling and emailing like, "Hey, did you do this? Did you buy that?" And I'm like, I'm what am I, 23 to mid-20s at the time, so I'm afraid to
Wow.
tell him no, and I'm like, "Well, I have a plan. I'm supposed to stick to it, and I bought this because of this." And he's like, "Yeah, but the news says that, so don't you wanna sell it?" I'm like, "What?" Because part of me needs to stick to the plan. The other part is afraid that I don't want to disappoint the client because
Yeah,
then he
you
takes
want his
and
approval.
that's our
Absolutely.
livelihood.
And then you place psychologists for him, but
Yeah,
more psychologists for yourself too, because
it
you're hearing all of his criticism. But there's another point you mentioned right there, and that is the news. And I just, in my opinion, I'm curious to hear your point of view on this, but I think a lot of people think when they first start that they can trade the news. And I know for sure that it's literally impossible. Um, at least that's my point of view. What's your take on that?
so I for years as a technical trader, I've been involved in battles of technicals versus fundamentals and news traders versus technicals, and I believe the same thing as you. And the funny story is, during my career, I met this a trader investor, Anthony Chung, who is a fundamental, mainly a fundamental investor and trader.
Is this a
And
guy who appears on CNBC from time to time?
um, he might be. I'm not sure. I haven't
Okay.
watched CNBC
Okay.
in so long because of I don't want to get
Cut.
influenced by
Yeah.
news. But this
Yep.
fundamental trader, he will tell you to not be a fundamental trader.
Really?
Like, yeah, and this is one of the reasons I like him because he's realistic. He's like, listen, I trade based off the news, and I do invest based off the news. He said, but if you normal retail trader tried to do that, you would be screwed. He's like, understand, I have a team, and I have different people on my team that are focused on different aspects, different elements. I still refer to the charts for many of my analysis, but I do make decisions based off long term, like interest rate decisions, monetary policy, stuff like that. But he will be the first one to tell you, said, like, yeah, don't try to trade off the news. First of all the numbers are bogus. It's more trading off of, like you said, trading off the people's reaction to the news. And that's what he actually does. He trades off of people and how the news influences the general public and
Supply and
understanding crowd
demand. So,
psychology, human behavior patterns, and how I'm going to react when I hear this type of news. Um, so that kind of put the debate to rest to me. I'm like, look, if a fundamental trader, a very successful one, who is telling you that don't be a fundamental trader, is then what else do you need to hear? So
right.
yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's any way to be consistent just trading off of news events. You'll get lucky every once in a while, then you'll get excited and blow more money. But I don't see how you can be consistent in it. It's not testable, verifiable, and repeatable.
Right. Right. Exactly. And that brings up an interesting point in trading. One of the worst things that can happen when you first start trading is you have a bunch of winning trades like in a row because you think you're the smartest dude on the planet. And next thing you know, you get hit over the head with a hammer like in a cartoon. Because so I started as a stockbroker when I was in 1994, right before the whole internet
Yeah.
started. And the minute the dot-com thing started, I was already into the technology. You know, I'm a computer guy. So I was already buying Microsoft and Intel. And then the AOL came around. I thought that was pretty cool. And I started buying all these internet stocks. And I was just in the right place at the right time. And my strategy, which was just pretty much buying tech stocks and then letting them run for a few months and then rolling out of them into other tech stocks. That's what I did for clients. Between like 94 and 2000, I won like 70% of the time from my clients. So I thought I was pretty special. 2000 came around, and that's when I had to figure out a methodology because my book of business got hit pretty hard. My personal wealth got hit pretty hard. I think you probably do need to take a couple hits, especially if you're trying to trade the news, because that can be a really hard thing to do. So you stopped trading, you figured out I can't handle other people's money. It's not for me. And then you went back to just trading yourself, or what was the next move for you?
Yeah, so I went back to trading myself. Now, during this entire time, I was being asked to coach, and by the my two mentors that I work with, they're building a company. They're like, "Hey, you're a success story. You're one of the traders that came out. You're really successful." I had a blog at the time because my mentors, they told me like you should journal and write it. I'm like, I don't want to. Big tough sports guy. I don't want to journal and write a diary. So I'm like, I'm going to start a blog, and pretty much this was before I was successful. I was just like doing daily entries on like the dumb stuff I did, where it's like, hey, here's the stupid thing I did today, and blah blah blah. And I learned from it just for myself, and somehow people stumbled across it, and it became very very popular. I think because I was one of the only people on the internet talking about how bad he was instead of talking about how good he was.
Right?
So this caught wind, and they were like, "You should really get into teaching. You're like, you're honest. You have a good way of looking at things." I'm like, "No, I don't deserve to teach, and I don't want to blah 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 blah." Um, so, but after the money management, I went back to trading. I had, I was trading my own money. I had more money, obviously, now after the years of money management. And then I had a game changing event. I don't know if you remember the brokerage PFG
Yeah, of
at all.
course.
Yeah. So I was a PFG client, and I woke up one day to an email that pretty much
Yeah,
said, yeah, all my money was gone.
game
And
over. Oh my God.
um, it was a very rough. I shouldn't say all. The majority of my money was gone. All my money in that account was gone, pretty much. And that was rough. And so I'm like, okay, well, gotta restart again. Here we go. And this is where I first started taking coaching seriously. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should look into this. This is a way that I can get some supplemental income. This is a way that I can start regrowing my account again. And I started doing it mainly for those reasons. I'm like, okay, I'm going to trade my smaller account, and I'll just add money from this to the smaller account and grow it up like I've done in the past. And I honestly really fell in love with the coaching. It was cool to one connect with traders, just the social aspect of like being able to talk to people like we're doing right now and actually have trading conversations was cool because it's a lonely world for many of us. And I tried to stay away from like internet forums and stuff like that because they're pretty toxic. Um, but I
I
also really enjoyed hearing the cool stories when traders that made it and they email you back and like, hey, like just want to say thank you. Like you really helped me do this. And now I've had, these good results. And like it, 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 I guess connected with a part of me that I wanted to have connections with. It gave me purpose. I'm not sure if you noticed, I coach track and field. I
I did
coach track
see
and
that
field.
on you did, or you
Yeah,
still doing it?
I still do. I still do.
Okay.
I coach track and field. I used to work in the school district. So like my mom was a teacher. So I guess in me is always just a natural teacher. And I feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm giving back to the
Okay.
world when I help others. I guess I'm a natural helper. And that feeling was a lot different than the feeling I got when I would mail a broker statement to my client saying, hey, I made you this much percent. Like I didn't feel anything from that. Oh, I'm helping this wealthy guy get wealthier. But the
Right.
feeling I got from a email was like, man, and right then I knew like this checks all the boxes. It's a way for me to make money. It's a way for me to stay socially connected, but it also gives me kind of a bigger purpose where I'm not just selfishly trading to make money for myself and saying, forget everyone else. I'm actually doing my small part to kind of give back and help make this world a better place.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Tell me about your coaching. So, are you coaching one-on-one? Are you doing group coaching? Tell us about what you're doing now, because you are the trading coach.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do I like to call it small group coaching. I did
Okay.
one-on-one for a little bit very early on in my career, and it's just one, it's awkward. It's you get some interesting people, which is kind of weird,
There's
especially if you're
always
doing like
somebody who wants to
I'm a-
re-engineer it, isn't there?
yeah, just having a conversation this morning about that with a guy, and I'm like, hey, ultimately, like you got to do whatever you want to do. Just make sure you're consistent in doing it. I don't agree with it. You can ask me that as many times as you want. I'm going to tell you I don't agree with it, but like you got to learn these lessons on your own. But what we found out is that, it's when you're doing one-on-one coaching, your schedule gets filled pretty quickly. You can only have so many hour-long meetings a day with people.
Right.
So we started doing group coaching where we try to get together groups, and that's what we were doing now. I started with the same company that my mentors are with, and then that company kind of had some bickering within, and things changed kind of with management there, and someone new came in that didn't really appreciate the family aspect that we had grown, and they tried to make it like a more normal corporation, I guess you can say. And I said, no, like you don't talk to me like that. You don't treat me like that. So I'm just going to leave. And then me and my business partner, we started our own thing called Tier One Trading, and we got a chance to do it our way. And the cool thing that when we started that, kind of a blessing in disguise, because we had all these ideas that of how we wanted to coach and how was a better and more efficient way to coach with the community aspect to it. But we weren't able to do that at the previous company because again, we didn't have any control or power.
Right.
When we started our own thing, we actually implemented that, and it's just been amazing on how successful it's been. It's been so amazing that who's it? Dr. Brett Steenbarger actually was aware of what we were doing, and he had an interview in Forbes magazine about innovators in trading education, and he brought us up because he said, "Hey, this is the future. That community aspect is a much better way of teaching and educating versus like, hey, take my course or hey, just one-on-one training because we tend to do better as human beings when we're in a group."
Which is interesting. I mean, the internet allows it to happen,
Yeah.
but it's not the same as being in a room with people either. So,
Yeah.
but I can see that. I can see that. So I've done a little bit of coaching a
Mhm.
few years ago, and I found it was all one-on-one, and I found it very challenging because
Yeah.
everybody wanted to tell me their story, and I wanted to hear their story. I wanted to know where they were coming from, but you know, it's all that head trash that gets stirred up after a whole bunch of losses, and it's hard to get people out of the past and bring them at least to the present to learn a methodology. So tell me how you do that. Are you teaching a methodology or are you coaching psychology? A little bit of both?
So everything, a methodology, we're heavy on psychology, risk management. I would say our philosophy is this. So I think this is what helps traders as well. So we have a big macro methodology and philosophy on treat your trading like a business, rules based trading. Here's what it takes to be a successful trader. You have to check these boxes. However, what we try to do is within those boxes, give you as much freedom as possible. And something that we encourage is like, hey, let's take a look at the psychological side. Let's learn a little bit more about yourself. Are you someone that is, do you run across the street without looking and just you're that aggressive? Or are you someone that waits for like it could be a red light, no one's coming, but you wait until it's green to cross. Let's learn about more about yourself and let's help you develop a trading style based off of that. Or do you find yourself more trend continuation based? Do you find yourself more counter trend? Are you aggressive with targets? Are you more conservative? Do you like structure? Do you like more mechanical systems? Let's try to figure out who you are. And what we do is throughout the courses, we give them kind of a taste of everything. And I always tell people this: go through all of the courses. Think about it like a buffet line. Go through all of the courses once as just like you're looking around the buffet line. Oh, we have this, we have this, we have that, we have that. During that process, don't worry about trading anything specific, but try to feel what makes most sense to you. What is easy for you to understand? What fits into your lifestyle? You know, what do you think you're going to be as a trader? And then dive back in and let's dig into the details. And I think that freedom of creating, either taking a strategy that we offer and making it their own, or maybe just taking the information and the trainings that we offer and developing something of their own, that helps massively with that trading psychology, because now they're no longer putting themselves in positions that they don't necessarily believe in. I'll give you a good example. So there was a point in time in my trading where I traded this mechanical strategy. My mentors that created the strategy, it was programmed. It gave me like red arrow to sell and a green arrow to buy, right? It couldn't get any more dumbed down than that. And so
It
I'm a
was
younger,
like some algorithm on the chart, and it just spit out
exactly.
the
Yep.
buy
It
and
was,
sell. Did you know
and
how it
these
worked at least?
three, so I knew what the indicators were. I didn't know the
Okay.
specifics of the indicator, but at the time, this is when I was younger, and I'm like, oh, I just want to make the money. But I knew like it had these indicators, and when these indicators did a certain thing, that's when that arrow would pop up on my chart. And I didn't really care to understand it more than that.
Yeah.
Um, but problem was, and that ended up being a problem. The problem was I would get these signals on my chart and it would be like sell, but I would do my own analysis and I'd be like, man, I think I should buy here. And I'd have this conflict because, and I'm naturally a counter trend trader. This was a more trend continuation type of strategy. We were just seeing different things because we're looking at both sides of the market. So then I would be like, okay, I'm going to follow the system and sell. And then it would like lose. And I'd be like, see, I was right. I was better than the system. And then I would just lose faith in the system. Then that next
Right.
signal will come and I'd be like, should I really take it? Because the last time, and you can just see the psychological cracks because I was trading something that, like you said,
It's
I didn't
always
fully
like that.
understand.
It's
I
always
didn't.
like that with the methodology.
So when you can trade something that you actually believe in, you're just less likely to make those psychological mistakes. And when you're less likely to make those psychological mistakes, you're less likely to kind of shoot yourself in the foot and actually follow your plan.
Right. So what is the methodology that resonated with you?
So price action trading, if I had to pick kind of a backbone, it is structure, support, and resistance, supply and demand. Everything I do in my trading is related around previous levels of support and resistance. I believe that they work like magnets in the market, where in some capacity, price is going to be pulled towards them. And depending on what happens at that level, they're going to be thrown away from them in one direction or the other. But yeah, everything I do as far as where I'm looking for entries, where I'm looking for targets at, how I'm placing stop losses, I can't think of anything in my trading that doesn't really take support, resistance, supply, and demand into account.
And when you say supply and demand, do you mean volume as an indicator of what's happening at a specific support or resistance? Like if you
Yeah.
get I mean, you're trading Forex exclusively or
Yeah.
you're trading stocks too?
Oh, Forex exclusively.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you see whatever you're trading and
Mhm.
it's going up and it gets to a resistance point, if you see a tremendous amount of volume at that resistance point, what does that mean to you?
That just confirms the level. So I'm starting off with support and resistance areas just with my eyes and my identification skills. If I see a tremendous amount of volume up there, that supports and confirms that, hey, like this is the right level that I'm looking for.
Okay.
Or if there's no volume there, it sends a signal where it's like, hey, this may not be as important as I think. Let's take more of a conservative approach and wait for, extra reasons to get involved instead of being aggressive. So volume is actually new to me in my trading. When I say new, the last 3 years.
Okay.
I liked it in the stock market. Forex was a little bit different because there's no central bank.
Right.
There's
It's a
the
little
volume
hard
isn't.
to know what the volume means.
Yeah, there's no like and I'm very literal and stuff, or at least used to be that like there's the number means nothing. So I remember having debates and I'm like, well, like this number doesn't actually mean anything. So how can I trust that number? And like, but over the last 3 years, kind of took a different look at it and
Maybe
don't.
it's relative.
Yes, that's exactly it. I don't look at the specific number, but I can look at it relative to other levels in the market and still get good information from it. But that's also why it's still secondary to the actual levels on the chart.
So I saw you posted a video on YouTube with a picture of what all the indicators that you had on your screen when you first
Oh,
started. And so it sounds like you've peeled away almost all of those indicators other than trend lines, perhaps, and support and resistance. Are there any other indicators that you do use?
yeah. So I use again support and resistance, horizontal support and resistance specifically.
Okay.
I use the RSI, the relative strength index, is really the only indicator that you'll see on my chart. I use the ATR, average true range. I don't really count it as an indicator because I don't look at it, but it gives me an important number. So the RSI is really the only thing that I
Is that
use.
like overbought or oversold for you?
Yeah, overbought, oversold
Right,
divergences.
right.
I'm slowly learning over the years because it's been the only indicator I've used for man the last 10 plus years. So I spend a lot of time with it. I'm learning new different tricks that I'm still that haven't been implemented in my trading yet, but I play around with them on the charts and I hope to use them in the future. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It's
it's
hard. I
that's
mean, when you first start learning how to trade, I mean, let's say you download TradingView or
Mhm.
TradeStation or whatever you're going to use. That TradeStation has like 800 indicators built into it. And then every indicator has at least 5 to 20 different settings. And then you can apply it to every imaginable time frame on every single chart. It's like infinite the permutations you can come up with. So they give you infinite ways of burying yourself.
Yes, yeah.
So that's what they
which
do.
which weapon do you want to kill yourself
Right.
with here?
And they take themselves out of the loop that way of being responsible for you blowing up your account.
It's
So
yeah.
here's this is a question that's coming out of left field, but it's I'm curious to hear your opinion, and that is there's a lot of these trader funding companies out there now. Are you guys recommending them? Are you recommending people stay away from them? There's got to be 20 or more now, and it seems like every day there are new ones. And I know it's a tough question.
So in general, I would say I recommend to stay away. And I'm hoping it's going to get better, but it's one of those things where I love the idea of like trader funding, online prop firms. That's certainly the way I would have went if it were available when I started versus going door to door asking people if I can manage their money and hearing all
Right,
those no's. The problem is a lot of them aren't legit. A lot of them they're really just setting you up where they can get your money to pay for the challenge, a challenge that you'll never pass because it's not realistic. A lot of them don't have actual payouts where they pay out in like some type of funky money or credit, so you're not actually getting the cash.
mm,
So you got to be very careful and make sure you do your due diligence and you choose a legit one. If with that being said, we have plenty of traders that we've worked with that have gone on to get funded. Um, but it's something that I wouldn't recommend doing until you've already proven to yourself that you're a consistently profitable trader. I think the problem comes in when traders see it and then they try to gear their trading just for that challenge or whatever it is. And it's more like hoping they get hot at the right time, where it's like, I'm
right.
doing this challenge for a month. I'm just doing whatever I can to try to achieve this challenge. And I hope I get hot. And if I'm not, I'll just do it again next month versus actually being a seasoned trader that is approaching it in a professional manner. So I think it is a good option, but only after you've learned how to trade the right way. I don't think it's good
Mhm.
for anyone
Do you
that's
think
new.
people who have learned to trade the right way with a little bit of their own money even need to be funded?
It depends on where you're coming from. I want to say honestly no, but I understand that everyone is different. So I've worked with traders that have no money, and it's like they've got nothing, but they're dead serious about investing their energy and effort into learning the markets, and that's their only way out. Where it's like, hey, I need to try to get funded by one of these things, and that's going to allow me to at least earn some money enough that
Don't
I
you
can go
think
to
that's
from
scary?
there.
I
Yeah.
find that like if somebody came to me and said, and they have because I get traders, I sell computers. I have a course for trading stocks as
Mhm.
well. Um, and at least for my stock trading course, I've had people say, I only have $1,200 and I'm on Social Security. and I really want to learn how to trade. And me personally, I'm like, I don't really think it's a good thing for you. I don't think it's the right way for you to go.
Yeah, I
So,
love it. This is
okay.
trader talk,
Yeah,
and
no, me and you could hang out, have a
yeah,
couple beers. We could talk for hours. So, tell me, um, how people can find you.
yeah. Our educational company, words, right? You can find us over at www.tier1trading.com. You can also find me on YouTube. Just YouTube search Akil Stokes. You can find me at the Trading Coach Podcast. Just not a lot of Akil Stokes is out there, so if you Google me, you'll find me somewhere. But I try to do as much as possible. Again, I have the coaching, which is fun, but I also understand that not everyone is in position to kind of like pay for those services. So I try to do as much as I can with podcasts and videos for
It's
free, just to kind
awesome.
of spread my knowledge of what I'm doing out there, and in hopes of inspiring others and giving other people the chance of maybe stumbling across something that helps them kind of go on the right path their selves.
Yeah, awesome. I'm curious. So, if somebody signs up for tier one, do you
Mhm.
have you have multiple strategies?
Yeah. So we have in general, we're going to teach you how to become a technical trader. And I like to think that we're going to be able to teach you how to become a technical trader in any different way: support, resistance, supply, demand, trend
It's all
continuation,
technical.
counter trend,
Right.
patterns, classic patterns, whatever you want to be. The general foundational skills of reading, interpreting, and ultimately trading a price chart. Within that, we also have specific strategies that we teach you as well. So strategies that I use, strategies that my business partner, Jason Greystone, uses. And what we hope that a trader does is not just blindly go to the strategy section and just follow them, right? You want to back test everything and whatnot, but you want to make whatever it is your own based on your dreams, your desires, your schedule. So you can take this strategy and say, hey, I want to add this filter, or I want to take this away, or I want to trade at this hours or that hours. And ultimately, you mold and make something that you feel comfortable with. And some traders will start off by just trading it as is. And then while they're doing that, start building or creating something of their own. Some traders like to tear it apart, take the general kind of theme of it, but add something or take something away and then kind of make it their own. But that's ultimately, we want you to become an independent, consistently profitable trader and use or create a strategy that you really feel comfortable using and something that fits into your lifestyle.
And how does the group part work? The group coaching part?
Yeah, so we have there's a big community on the platform. There's a big chat where people are talking to each other, sending messages to each other. There's little chat groups too that, like, if we're, let's say I come up with a new strategy and I'm like, hey guys, let's all go test this thing and then share our opinions. So it's kind of group thinking there, like a mastermind group where it's like, hey, I tested it using this filter. Doesn't work, don't try it. And the next person's like, okay, good. I was about to try that. I won't do it. But here, how about these pairs, blah, 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 like that. We also have live sessions, so we have a London live trading room and a New York live trading room 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where we come into the markets in the morning. And we're literally breaking down, dissecting charts, asking questions, answering questions, looking for trading opportunities, trading on a daily basis. And I think
You're
that
doing
practice
so you're doing live trading in those rooms.
yeah. Yep. And then
Okay.
on Mondays, our dedicated Q&A session. These are where we're really digging into questions that people have about the course, where it's like, hey, I'm stuck at learning a head and shoulders pattern. Can we really break this down and explain this? And it's more of kind of um a live educational session. So we're not really looking for trades. We're still breaking down the charts, but handling the questions that people have. And then on Fridays, we have an accountability session, which accountability sessions are pretty cool, where at the beginning, it's just a new member coming in, introducing themselves, like, hey, where are you from? What got you into trading? What are your goals? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to direct them on a path. We're saying, okay, let's hear from you again in 3 months. And in 3 months, you should have X, Y, and Z done. And then they come back in 3 months and we're like, hey, 3 months ago, you said you're going to do X, Y, and Z. Where are you at in your journey? And it holds them accountable to make sure they're actually doing the things that they're supposed
Right.
to do.
Right.
It also makes them more familiar with the community, where people link up and see, like, hey, oh, you're right. You're around where I'm around. Let's meet up in person and have lunch and become accountability partners. Or, hey, I used to do that career as well. And they can network kind of outside of trading, where many of our traders have jobs that have helped other people in their own life, just because they've developed those friendships. So it's, again, it's a cool community that is around
Right.
trading, but it hopefully spreads outside of trading as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this was a great conversation, Akil,
Yes.
and I very much enjoyed it. We'll have to do it again.